Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us online. Nice and promptly at 10 o'clock this morning with our revised time. And we're going to spend a few minutes, or 30 to 40 minutes, in the company of Cristian from Viu Manent over there in Chile. So good morning, Cristian.
Hello there. Well, hope it was mine, but not yet, at least.
And our subject for today is the Colchagua Valley. Many people feel they know the Colchagua Valley. It's the sort of heartland, if you like, of the Chilean wine industry. And lots of people are sort of focusing on other areas other than the Colchagua Valley, but Viu Manent have made a commitment to focus more on this valley and have been doing a lot of research into this area. So Cristian, do you want to fire away?
Sure. So yeah, a few words before I start the presentation. You have to understand that Viu Manent is a family-owned business. It's the third generation now, and they have always been connected with Colchagua. That's why most of our wines, 90% of our wines, comes from there. Different from the general Chilean approach, which is have a little bit of everything, because of course it gives you sometimes more chances to get some business. But our feeling is that Colchagua has, and that's what we're trying to communicate, is that Colchagua has not everything, but it has very different spots within the valley where you can do different types of wines with different varieties. And that's why we believe that for the future we will be 100% Colchagua, which is, we are going against the stream, let's say. But we feel that this is our way of doing the business, of developing it. So that's why we are trying to show the valley this way.
Yeah, because a lot of the Chilean wineries are looking at areas that are much more to the south or to the north. So it is a bit different to focus on the middle.
Yes, they are doing this, but to be honest, they are doing this mainly for the social media, because if you see their numbers, they still have 90% in the Central Valley, and probably they will have 10%, 5% of vineyards that probably they don't own. They buy the grapes. In the southern regions, where you can find Grenache, you can find País, you can find varieties that are not that common in the central part of Chile, but it is not, to be honest, it is not important in terms of volume. It's just a way of, it's just marketing, let's say. I agree, we have to develop this as a country because it gives a lot of talk from the media. We need that, but at the end of the day, it's not important really in terms of volume.
Okay. So talking about the location of Colchagua.
So if you can see here the three maps that I'm showing, this just to give you an idea of how the viticulture area of Chile is. Probably you have seen this, but let's say that from Limarí, which is up to the north, until Malleco and Biobío, there will be around 700 kilometers. And the rest of Chile, you have to see, it's a small proportion of the country. Chile will be 4,000 kilometers long. So this is a small proportion of the country where the wines and the wineries are. And you can see that, Limarí here, Choapa, which is a very small, Choapa is mainly for pisco. For those of you that have had a pisco sour, well, it comes from Choapa and Limarí. Then you have Aconcagua, which is a little bit up to the north of Santiago, very well known for Errázuriz. Errázuriz, it comes from Aconcagua. Then you have Maipo, where Santiago is. Santiago is here. Maipo, it's probably one of the best valleys for Cabernet Sauvignon. At the same stage, you have Casablanca and San Antonio, which is Lleida, those two spots here. Then you have Rapel, where we are. And Rapel is divided into two sub-valleys, let's say. One is Cachapoal, here, and the other one is Colchagua, here. Then you go to the main part of where, let's say, 50% of the vines are in Chile, which is Maule and Curicó. Those two is where most of the bulk wine comes from Chile. Of course, there are some good wineries here as well, but this is where most of the volume comes from Chile. Maule is huge. It's huge, huge, huge. And then you have the southern regions, Itata, Biobío, and Malleco, sorry. If we do a zoom of the central part, you can see, well, the main three, or let's say 5 valleys, where most of the bottled wines come from, which is Maipo, Casablanca, San Antonio, and Rapel here, which has those two. What is important and what I want to explain you now is that there is a new zonification for Chile, new, let's say 5-6 years already, but I think that this has not been explained well for the rest of the world. The differences in Chile are not north-south, they are east-west, because you have in the west, you have the influence of the ocean, and in the east, you will have the influence of the Andes mountain. So there are more differences, let's say, between Maipo closer to the mountain, to San Antonio, than from Aconcagua to Huitata, let's say. And this is very, very important to understand that within one valley, you can have different things. The picture on your right-hand side shows a little bit better how this zonification is made. In orange, you will have it's called the mountain range, or the mountain zone, let's say, the Andes. On green, you will have the central part that is called between cordilleras, between the mountains, that's how it's called. And in blue, you have the coastal range. So this is where Lleida, San Antonio, Colchagua Costa, and so on and so on. That's very important because of this here. And this explains a little bit better. This is general, of course. It is not always like this. You will see later on in some maps that I want to show that it's not always like this, but it is, let's say that this is an average. You have the Andes right here with a lot of winds coming from the snow, and you have the winds coming from the Pacific Ocean. Remember that the Pacific Ocean is cold. For those of you that have been here in Chile and that have been doing some surf, the Pacific Ocean is quite cold. So the winds coming from there, they are refreshing, let's say. And you have 2 range of mountains. Of course, the biggest one is the Andes to the east that separate us from Argentina, thanks God. And then you have the coastal range, which is this small one here, that is quite lower in terms of height, but is in terms of geological importance is more important because it is older. In the soil that you will have there is older, and you will find more interesting types of soils there. Any question you have?
You've got basically influence of cold air coming both from the east and from the west, with that Pacific. So sort of counterintuitively for us, where sort of proximity to sea in Europe tends to mean that the temperatures are a bit more moderated. It's actually the middle, the Intracordilleras, the bit between the 2 mountain ranges, that are the sort of more moderated areas. Is that right?
I would say that yes and no. No, because the central part is the hottest one. It's like an oven. in some parts because you have the two mountains, and then there is no wind, so it's really hot. But yeah, you can say that because in the coast you have a lot of fog, and in the Andes mountains, well, it is difficult mainly because of the frost. And this is interesting because many people ask me, what is your altitude? Where are you? Where are you producing your Malbecs? What altitude are you? And and the answer is, I don't know. And not because we don't know, it's because we don't care. This is mainly because most of the people, Argentina has done a really good job in doing this, in explaining the different altitudes, vineyards, and they have to do this because they don't have the ocean. So the only way for them to differentiate one vineyard for the other is to go up into the mountains. In Chile, we have the ocean closer. You have to understand that Chile is very thin. It's only 250 kilometers wide, whereas Argentina is thousands of kilometers from the Andes until the Atlantic Ocean. So they don't have this influence from the ocean, and that's why they need to go up into the mountains to get more cold. We, opposite, have the ocean, and that's why for us it's not that important the altitude. It's more important how close you are from the ocean. That's the key issue in Chilean viticulture.
Sure. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good. Then going to our friend Google, you can see here that this is rappel, all of this, and I draw some lines here to differentiate Cachapoal, which is here. This is where I live, here, and Colchagua here. And why I'm showing this, because Colchagua is what it makes Colchagua different. As you can see here, Colchagua has Cordillera here, and here you will have Coile, for instance, really good wines from the Cordillera. Then you have between the Cordilleras, where most of the wineries are, is Viu Manent, is Montes. We have a lot of neighbors over there. And then what makes it different is that you have Colchagua Costa. If you see Maipo here, they don't have the Costa range. Aconcagua has a little bit one here. Limarí, it has some, but Limarí don't have the Andes. The same with Choapa. So Colchagua is very unique in terms that you can be in the mountains, you can be in between the mountains, and you can be in the coast. And this is shown here. This is Cachapoal, where really good Carmeners come from this part here called Las Cabras. And then south of Cachapoal is Colchagua, where we are. We are in these spots here. This is where Viu Manent has different vineyards. And we buy some whites from those two here, which is Costa. And this is unique. And this is why we decided to go 100% Colchagua, because you can have one of the best Chardonnays from Litueche, amazing Sauvignon Blancs from Paredones here, the wines that we already have from Peralillo and Santa Cruz. And if you want, you can buy some grapes from the Andes side to make a blend if you want. So that's why Colchagua can do this in terms of being more, have more diversity. And the question that you will have, I think, automatically is, okay, you have differences in weather, but what about the soils? Probably the soils will be the same because you have, I mean, this is only, I don't know, 40 kilometers apart. And I will try to explain that even the soils, and I will show you some soil pits, are quite different. So, next one. This is Santa Cruz. For those of you that have been in Chile, Santa Cruz is the heart of Colchagua. It's a beautiful city. It's a city, yeah. It's not a town. It's a city, I would say. It has grown a lot over the last 10 years. Here, these are the vineyards of Viu Manent, just here. And what part? And here, this is Apalta. For those of you that have heard about Apalta, from Montes l'Apostol is here. Beautiful. They are our neighbors, and they are here. They are in the other side of the river. Viu Manent is south of the river, and they are north of the river, in the Piedmont of these mountains here.
I was going to say, this is this mountain range to sort of the north and east. Is that those are the foothills of the Andes, right?
Oh, that's a very good question. You can see it here. Some people would say that this is part of the Andes mountains, and some other people would say, no, this is not the Andes mountains. This is the coastal range mountains. Okay. I personally think that this is a let's say like an arm of the Andes mountains, okay, because it has importance in terms of geological origin. It's quite different. So the wines that we do, even the ones here where we are, where the El Olivar is, El Olivar vineyard from us, where the secret range comes from this mountain range here. And even this mountain range, there are discussions if it is Andes or coastal. So it's interesting. But you see, here is Santa Cruz, and the close-up will be this. And Santa Cruz, you see that is surrounded by mountains. So it's very hot. But what makes interesting for Viu Manent will be that it is in between two rivers. This is the Tinguiririca River. It's very easy for you to pronounce, Tinguiririca.
I'm not even going to attempt it.
I love to hear it from you, Tinguiririca.
No, I can't.
And there is a small, let's say it's more like a creek, but still it's a river here. So Viu Manent is in between two rivers. And what kind of soil do you think you have when you are in between two rivers?
I'm assuming we've got very deep alluvial soils in this area.
Yeah, this is alluvial, of course, and very deep soils with a beautiful composition on it, this is again a zoom of the vineyards of Viu Manent. Yeah, this is the cella. Here is the restaurant and the touristic area. And you see, this is the river here and the other river here, and we are just in the middle. So all of this will be Cabernet Sauvignon, mainly a little bit of Cabernet Sauvignon, Malbec, just a little bit of Syrah, but not much. Mainly Cabernet Sauvignon and Malbec.
And I think you've been digging pits around your vineyard.
Yeah, Chileans love to do that. Chileans love to do that, to do soil pits, and that's an image. You believe it or not, we keep this one open the whole year. We put like it is closed now. When people goes there, we open it and show it, because we think that it's quite amazing to see a soil like this. It is not good for new vineyards because it's a perfect soil. So for new vineyards, it will give too much power, let's say, to the vineyards, and you will produce too much. But for old vineyards, it is amazing, because the old vineyards will develop in balance, and that's what you need. Old vineyards, good soil, and then you can do Malbecs of 100 years old with no problem. Our Malbecs, where we make the single vineyard and the Viu Uno, have in average, the Viu Uno will be 100 years old, and the single vineyard it's around 60 to 80 years old, and we produce 8 tons per hectare, which is a lot. Nice. For vineyards that old, and that is thanks to the soil. It's more than 4 meters deep. Of course, it's a fluvial origin. It has a really good mix of clay, sand, and well, It is we don't irrigate here, only once per year. We don't have a irrigation system here. We irrigate once per year because we flood it, because most of the roots are in contact with the water down deep in the soil, so you don't need to irrigate. And that's, and again, something unique. Most of the vineyards in Chile will have irrigation because you have to, not because it's too hot, let's say.
Okay.
For instance, we don't have rain since, when was the last time that it rained here? It was August, and we will not have rain until March.
But you're getting the water from the rivers, which presumably are coming down from the mountains to the
Yeah. But that gives you an idea how important it is to irrigate the vineyards. It is the only way to maintain them, unless you have a soil like this where the roots can be deep there. And so that's why it is so. This soil is it's so different, let's say.
And so and this is lovely photo. So this is the San Carlos vineyard.
Yeah, this is the house of the family here. This picture is taken by the touristic area where the restaurant is. So it gives you an idea that those mountains over there, this is Apalta, where Montes and La Postol here is. And this is flat. Where we have our vineyards here is completely flat, with old vineyards and very deep soils. That's the key. All vineyards, deep soils, no water. That's the key of San Carlos.
When you say old vineyards, I think we're going back to the slide before. You were saying that's kind of up to 100 years old, these vines.
Up to, yeah. I mean, we actually, of course, the family didn't plant these vineyards. This vineyard was planted when they bought the estate. But according to what people and the father, because all the families that live there have been always working with wine, and this is something that you know because of what people say. So, and of course, we have taken off some vineyards, some plants, and you see the roots are, I don't know, 5-6 meter deep. So very old vineyards. Of course, we have planted new ones, but mainly for we are doing some Chardonnay here, which is awkward in a way that the Chardonnay together with Cabernet Sauvignon and Malbec shouldn't be together, but is a really good component of for our Chardonnay Reserva that gives you a little bit more body, because the rest comes from the Andes apart and from the coast the other part. So it's we blend different places for the Chardonnay Reserva.
Okay, and we have a single vineyard wine coming from here.
Yeah, which is the Malbec. The Malbec comes from here. Malbec single vineyard, the Vivo Centennial Vineyards. Well, the name is there, and the Cabernet Sauvignon Gran Reserva comes also from here, with average 50-40 years old vineyards of Cabernet on his own roots. That's something important as well. All these plants are not grafted and not irrigated.
Okay.
Then we move, well, and this is the wine that I was going to, that I choose one wine per state. This is the single vineyard Malbec with the new label. And each one of the labels will show the particularity of the soil. And so you can see here a very deep soil, and that's the idea. It comes from 2 different blocks, all the years from the same. Of course, it's 100% Malbec. And here we are using something new over the last 3 years. We are doing some tinajas of clay, that only 3% of the wine, but still, that's something new coming in Chile. and I think that it will start to grow more and more. Tinajas, concrete eggs, and French foudres, but untoasted. The idea here will be to keep the wine in not in contact with oak, let's say, so the wine can develop beautifully their own aromas. That's the idea.
Okay. And tinajas would be the equivalent of amphore in
Exactly.
Europe. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Only 700 liters, small ones.
Yeah.
And we have like we don't have much. It's like 12, so it's not much. But still, we are using it mostly in Malbec. Patricio did a very tiring work in making the different single vineyards in all kinds of recipients. I don't know how to say it. And the best results for Malbec was in the tinajas. Not the same with Syrah, not the same with Cabernet, and not the same with Carmener. Each one of them had a better evolution in different kinds of vessels.
That's fascinating.
So,
How
that's something that
experiment.
This is something that Patricia has done, and it's really interesting for the future to continue doing.
Yeah. One quick question that's come in is and it's something we didn't cover, which is how far is it in kilometers between sort of the east end of the valley at the Andes and the west end over at the ocean?
In average, will be 250 kilometers.
Okay, thank you.
From the border, I mean, this is from the border with Argentina, up in the mountains. Of course, there is no vineyards there until the ocean, where there are no vineyards there. So let's say that the plantation area will be around roughly 150 kilometers.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, so it's very wide. It's very wide.
If anybody has any questions, by the way, I forgot to say this at the start, then do throw them into the chat function, and I will either ask them as we go through, or we can open up the mics at the end and you can ask them yourselves. So sorry, Cristian, do carry on. I think we're moving on to the El Olivar, the next vineyard.
Yeah, the two other vineyards that we have, they are very close from each other. They are, Santa Cruz is here, so this is where we were, Santa Cruz area here, and then we move it's like 40 kilometers, and we get to Peralillo, which is here. And the vineyard that I'm going to show you is this one here. So it's in a piedmont of these mountains, and the other one, which is La Capilla, is around here. So they are very close to each other, but the soils, you will see, they are completely different again. And in here you will have also a little bit of influence from the ocean, despite you have these mountains here that will give you this like a wall for the winds. When you plant up to the hills here, you will receive some influence from the ocean, and that's where the wine that I will show you from this vineyard comes from the top hills of here. So you receive some air coming from the ocean.
But we've moved away from the rivers here, so presumably we've lost the alluvial soils.
Still, the river is still there. The river goes here, but of course it is. You can see it's green. All the green area will be closer to the river. But here is a completely different type of viticulture. Here you need water. Here the soils are very shallow, so it's completely different. Completely different. This is a picture, a zoom of the vineyard, El Olivar. You see that it goes. This is more or less plain. It will have 5-6% pendant, and then you go up here until 20-25%. This one here is the Grenache vineyard of the wine that I will show you. Grenache, Mourvedre, it's I think it's this one here, and the Syrah will be all this.
So we're
Then you
starting
have,
to take advantage of the slopes of
yeah,
the hills to the
yeah,
I'm going my left and my right, to the
yeah.
west.
And here is the Carmener that
Right.
we just launched a new wine, the single vineyard Carmener. This year it was only for Chile. Next year it will be available for the rest of the world, and it comes from here. This is Carmener. So Carmener, Syrah, Grenache, Mourvèdre, a little bit of Petit Verdot here, and this will be mainly Malbec. We have some Tanat there as well, but no Cabernet Sauvignon here. We planted some at the beginning, but it was not good. It was too hot, and the soil was not for Cabernet Sauvignon at all.
Couple of questions coming in while we're talking. Will future plantings of vines be ungrafted as well, or will just to protect them from phylloxera, will they be grafted?
Some people is doing is grafting the new plantations, but I would say if phylloxera haven't get here yet, why nobody knows, but it's not here. It's not in Chile, and it is so much easier, and in terms of viticulture, to have ungrafted vines, and it's much more pure. So most of the people, I would say, they still planting without grafting. If I had to do it, I will do it without.
Okay.
But that's a personal. At the end of the day, it's something that depends on the viticulturist. But there is no reason yet. We hope if the phylloxera comes to Chile, where it will be a disaster. But if still don't be, I mean, it is so easy to get different diseases from all the rest of the world that if it still don't happen, I don't see why it should happen. Maybe it's a short term view, but I don't know. Well, there's a lot of people arguing about this, but it's so much easier to have ungrafted vines.
Yeah, yeah. And how many hectares is the El Olivar?
Good question. The first one, the San Carlos, it's around 150 hectares. Then El Olivar, this one will be around 80 hectares. And the third one, the La Capilla, will be around 40. In total, we have 270 hectares, which is medium to small. I would say small.
Yeah.
For Chilean standards. So we crush around 3 million kilos from our own vineyards, and then you have to add some whites that we buy.
That you buy, yeah. Okay. And so just quite literally digging deeper into the soils of El Olivar, we can see here the volcanic influence rather than the alluvial one.
Exactly, yeah. And this is, I mean, is not that deep, as you can see. And here, well, Rebecca, she asked me a really good question before we started about what the origin of this soil will be. Is geological, which means that the mother stone here, this is very. There are some places where the mother stone is not that deep, and when this happens, the water of the rain get in contact with the soil, with the stone, with the mother rock, and start to corrupt it, to disintegrate it. Over the time, this will take millions of years, because normally the mother stone is really deep in the soil, but as here is up and is closer to all the influence from the water and so on, it disintegrates much faster. And the name is alterite. It's called alterite, which is one stage of the soil that is being decomposed by different things. One of them, the water.
Okay.
And the interesting thing is that the roots destroy this rock and get in between them, and this gives you a minerality to the wine, makes it more interesting in some ways, and that's really different from this soil particularly. You don't have this in of course in San Carlos, as you saw, neither in the next one, which is different as well.
So from this vineyard, I feel like looking at this vineyard, there's more of a, I'm trying to make comparisons to what we would understand in Europe, but sort of more Mediterranean varietals, whereas the San Carlos vineyard, we were looking more at a kind of Bordeaux varietals of Cabernet and Malbec and those kind of things. So would that be about right? The wine you've chosen to highlight from this area, I think, was the Vivo.
Yeah, I mean, you have to think that Chilean viticulture has been developing for hundreds of years, but in terms of really focusing on quality, it started in the 90s, so we're quite young in this sense. And at the beginning, all the people start planting everything and everywhere, and that was well, you can expect that. But now we have found out the different areas should be for some grape varieties and so on and so on. And now, of course, we are doing, as I mentioned, San Carlos, in our case, San Carlos, Cabernet Malbec. El Olivar will be for more Mediterranean type of varieties, plus some others like Tanat and Petit Verdot and so on. And La Capilla, it's mainly for Carmener and Cabernet Sauvignon. So this will give you years of experiencing. So it takes time.
Yeah,
it takes time. That's but the results have been amazing when you start focusing on what you should be doing since the beginning. But it's impossible. You have to think that the ones that bring the viticulture to Chile were mainly Spanish people and French people in the past, in the 1800s, and they start planting what they knew. The Spanish planted Garnacha, as they call it, and the French Cabernet Sauvignon, and so on and so on, and they planted everywhere because they were trying to see where it was the better site. And so Chile, it's a bit of a mix between a French viticulture and a Spanish viticulture. I would say more the French side, because you have to think that in the 1800s, the Spanish people was not very much, the Chilean didn't love much the Spanish after the war that we have of centuries ago. No. So now it's different. We love them, but at this stage, the Chilean viticulture was much more influenced by the French.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Not Italian at all. Different from Argentina. Argentina has a little bit more Italian influence, but in Chile, no, we didn't. So that's another picture of El Olivar. You can see here the plantations. It's a beautiful spot. We have a terrace here. Will Oatley, that I saw that he's here. He has been enjoying some pisco sours up here. It's a beautiful spot. It's a very, very.
When we can all travel again, we'll all come back.
Great place to be. Well, at some point we will, I hope. Yeah, but well, you can see the difference of color. This is the Carmener. A little bit more. This was taken in autumn, so this is Carmener with the leaf turning red in autumn.
Yeah.
Here and here. Then the wine that I choose from this place is called Punta del Viento, which means the wind's point. This is up into the highest that we produce there, and this is a blend of Grenache, Mourvedre, and Syrah. This vintage is 2015. This is the one that you have available, and we didn't do 16 and we didn't do 17 for different reasons, and now we are launching the 2018. Why we didn't do it 16 because it was a rainy season, and the result of those varieties there was not as good as we wanted. And 17 was the opposite, was so hot. I remember.
Right.
Do you remember 2017? There was a lot of fires in Chile.
Oh,
I was
yeah.
actually I was in your office in London when I received the pictures of our vineyards in a fire. It was dramatic. So it wasn't a good vintage neither for this wine in El Olivar. So we didn't do those two, 16 and 17, and now we are doing 18.
And this shows very clearly the sort of Mediterranean influence that we were talking about there with what is typically a sort of Southern Rhone style blend of Grenache, Syrah and Mourvèdre in this wine. Yeah.
Yeah. And why Vivo? That's another question that people ask me. It's because this is B from Viu and Bo from Bottini. So the two surnames of the third generation. Third? Yes, third. So Jose Miguel Viu is the owner now, third generation, and his two surnames are Viu and Bottini. The second generation was Viu Manent, and that's why the name of the company, and that's why the name of the wine, Vivo.
I'm going to gently move you along, Christian, because it's time is cantering away. We're going into lots of detail, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
But I'm aware that people have got to get on. Yeah. So let's go to the third. The third
one will be La Capilla, which is only 40 hectares, and here we produce mainly Cabernet Sauvignon and Carmener. It's flat. But it has a really particular kind of soil with volcanic ashes. All this is volcanic ashes. Then you have sand, compacted sand here. So the roots will get in contact with the ashes and with the sand, and it gives a very particular taste for those two varieties, Carmener and Cabernet Sauvignon.
So this is almost a mix of the previous two vineyards with sort of volcanic influence and the river.
Exactly. Influence. Yeah. It is alluvial, fluvial, but with volcanic influence. You have a lot of acid. Yeah. When you drink the one that I'm going to show, you can feel the tannins are a bit shock, like. Chalk tannins, like when you draw in the school in the past, this chalk, it's called?
Yes, chalky.
You feel this this kind of tannins when you drink it. That's a picture, and that's what I'm saying here. You can see the roots there in contact with the ashes, and that's very, very important for us. Wow. It's a really good picture, actually.
A question has come in: is do you have a flagship wine? Is the Viu One your flagship wine?
Yeah. I mean, Viu One is the big brother of the single vineyard Malbec that I showed at the beginning, and it's actually it's a very small part of where we produce very small quantity that over the years have always have the best results in Malbec, and of course, it is the oldest vineyards that we have, more than 100 years old, and it is.
So that would be going back to the San Carlos vineyard.
Yeah.
Okay.
Important here, just to show you, this is in all the vineyards we have this, which is solar panels, and all the energy we need, we produce it ourselves in all the vineyards and in the cellar. And this is something important to mention in terms of sustainability. We have photovoltaic, photovoltaic, I don't know, energy produced by ourselves. And that's very cool, I think. And that's the wine that I want to show from this vineyard, El Incidente. It's a Carmener blend. It has 88% Carmener, 10% Malbec, and 2% Petit Verdot. And again, here it's the volcanic ashes what makes this wine very particular. It is for me, it's one of the best Carmenes coming from Chile. And if you see the Descorchados guide from Patricio Tapia, it has always been selected among the 5 best Carmeners. So it's a really good wine. If you want to surprise someone in terms of giving them something unique, this is the wine.
I think Carmenere is one of those grapes that suffered a little
Yeah.
At the early days because people didn't quite know how to grow it or where to grow it, but now it's getting back into good reputation again because people know how to treat it.
Exactly. That's exactly what it happened. They planted everywhere, and Carmenere needs a very specific type of soil and weather. It is the last variety to be harvested, and it was planted together with Merlot, which is the first variety in the reds to be harvested. So it's at the beginning it was too green, peppery. So now it's if you compare the Carmeneres, early Carmeneres to now, it's completely different style.
I think I love this slide. I think this is a really fantastic illustration of the different soils and also those beautiful labels for this single vineyard range.
Thank you.
Pick the soils so clearly.
Yeah.
And the second, the wine with the sort of purpley label. This is the new one. This is the new.
Yeah, that's the Carmenere called Loma Blanca. Loma Blanca. Yeah, and you can see that this is very similar to this. That's why.
Yes. Yeah. Just going back to the question on sustainability. Sorry, questions come in saying, are there many other wineries in Chile that are 100% self-sustaining in terms of energy, solar panels? Are you alone in that, or are there a lot of other wineries doing something similar?
It is starting to grow. I would say that I don't know any other winery that has this like 100%. But it's growing, and that's really important. It's really good. For instance, we have in Chile, like it's called the sustainability code. That it was made by Wines of Chile, together with some people from the monopolies in Sweden, Norway, and Finland, because not all the wineries wanted to be on the fair trade side. To do fair trade is a huge thing. So we decided as a country to go to sustainability, and we would say that 15% of the wineries, 20% of the wineries in Chile are doing this. We get the certification, and we have 100% completed Viu Manent, and there are other wineries doing so. And that's the right way to move. I mean, it is not only about energy; it's about your all the people that work with you, all the shareholders. It's a holistic thing. The vineyards, it is not organic, but at the same time, you can't use certain types of products as well. So it's a very interesting thing that I think that Chile, being a very clean viticulture, we haven't done the right job in trying to explain this to the people, to the general people. They see Chile and they see only cheap wines and good value, but it's much more than this. And this is one of the things that I always want to highlight, that Viu Manent, and I would say Chile, is very clean. We don't do organic wines, but we are very close to it. We were, without knowing, we were vegan, and now we get the certification for all the Gran Reserva and secret wines. We could do so for all the wines. It's a little bit expensive, but in terms of certification, I mean. But the wines that we produce are very, very clean, and that's something that is important to highlight, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then just so, sorry to interrupt, but moving you on more towards the coast, I think, where we'll leave Viu Manent's own vineyards, but go on to
very fast
vineyards that we work with. Yeah.
So Here was, no, around here down is Santa Cruz. And here is where we produce, no, we buy these grapes in long-term contracts, the grapes for Chardonnay, Gran Reserva. And as you can see, it is very close to the ocean, and this is coastal, 100% coastal. It's called Litueche, the zone here, Litueche. Another fantastic word for you, Litueche.
Litueche. I can do that one. The river's
And
lost me.
this is a close-up of the vineyards. It's a very big one. We buy a proportion, not all of them. And you can see that this is only like 12 kilometers to the ocean only. And this is like a plateau here. So this is up, this is higher terrain than here. So they receive a lot of winds from the ocean. And different from Casablanca is that here you don't have fog.
Okay,
So this is
my question. So you're not getting fog.
This is cleaner. You don't have problems with botrytis, no. And you have the same temperatures that Casablanca, but cleaner. But the problem, you say, but why are you not planting there, or more Chileans planting? The problem here is the water. There are no much water rights here, despite the river is here. But there is not much water in the coastal region all over Chile, because the rivers, of course, start in the Andes and finish in the ocean. And after the cities and everything, you don't have much water to irrigation. So that's why the vineyards in the coastal region are not so common, unfortunately, because for me it's one of the best places to have wine. Even for whites, of course, but even for some reds, it could be interesting to see.
And so the wine specifically coming from here?
Yeah, this is the wine coming from here. It's one of my favorites in Viu Manent. It's the Gran Reserva Chardonnay. Well, what can I say? It's in terms of winemaking, it depends on the year, but it's more or less 40% of malolactic fermentation only. That goes to fermentation in French oak. All the rest is kept in tank steel vessels to keep it fresh and with good acidity. So it's a very balanced Chardonnay. I like it a lot. Yeah, you can keep it longer if you want, or you can drink it straight away. It's very flexible and beautiful wine. And that's it, I think. Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Cristian. I think we have asked most of the questions in the chat as we've gone through. The timing, we said we'd only be about 40 minutes, but actually we've run over. But it's been fascinating taking this deep dive into the areas in Colchagua. I never realised there was so much variety. So if anyone wants to ask another question, please do, but I am going to probably wrap up now. Thank you so much for your time this morning, Cristian. Sorry for the early start, but we got through this without the technical difficulties that we had last time.
Yes,
so thank you to everybody for jumping online. Thank you to Cristian, and I hope to see you again before too very long.